you go out to dine at a restaurant, how many of you try your best to leave somewhat of a decent tip for your waiter? Okay, good. That should be all of you. They do say that one of the best ways to determine someone's character is to see how they treat a waiter, because they make their entire living, their entire job, to serve you, the customer, and make you happy. Now, while I personally have never worked as a waiter, I have known many people and have had countless friends who have, and so I've been able to develop an understanding on just how difficult it really is to work in that field. You see, waiters receive a very, very, very low payment, and because of that, they are expected to make up for it with the tips they earn. Unfortunately, that does not always work that way, because people are either rude and careless and don't leave anything, or they simply don't know how to tip, and so they end up unintentionally leaving a much smaller one than they should be. Now, but we have to understand that this is how they make their living, and so allow me to give you all some advice on just how to reach out and simply lend a helping hand to your fellow citizen as they just try to make their way through life like you and me. Now, in order to tip fairly, you have to figure out the tip on the entire amount of your meal's worth. Don't count any coupons or discounts. That's not fair to the server. You may have had to pay slightly less than what you generally would have, but the waiter still had to work every bit as much as usual. So it's not fair to not give them a full tip just because of a discount or a coupon. Now, you might also want to calculate your tip on the amount before the tax is added, but it's usually not such a big deal, because it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. But still, it's nice to put some consideration into that. Now, I understand that some restaurants are absolute crap. They're smelly, they're messy, it's managed horribly, the food is awful, there's nothing of interest on the menu. I understand that, but that is not the server's fault. Your tip, the tip you leave for your waiter, should not have anything to do with how you view the restaurant as a whole. You should evaluate your server alone. And if you don't like that specific restaurant, just don't go back there. Simple as that. Now, say his or her service is not quite up to par. Say it's not entirely favorable. Okay, you should still give them the benefit of the doubt anyway, because nobody's perfect, we all have bad days, they're still trying to just make their living. You should at least still give them about a 10% tip, at least. Again, we all have our bad days. Now, as for those of you who don't know how to calculate a tip, here's a little guideline. Generally, if the service is fantastic, top-notch, you leave about 20%. For a solid, decent service, about 15%. And if it's bad, don't leave 2 pennies, give them about 10%. Because even if your waiter is terrible, there are some restaurants where the tips are pooled and shared with all the other employees. And so if you didn't leave anything, you'll be punishing everybody. So just give the staff the benefit of the doubt and at least give a 10% tip. It'll benefit. Like I said before, nobody is perfect. That includes you and me, the customers. Sometimes we give the waiters a very, very, very hard time. And we leave a mess, we complain, we can be rude. So if you know that you've given your waiter a hard time, it would be a good idea to have a little humility and just leave a little bit extra because the staff had to work extra hard for you. Now, many of us are not good at math, so many of us don't know how to calculate. Here's another little guideline. 10% is about $1 for every $10 in the amount for a meal. $15 is $1.50, and $20 of a tip, 20% of a tip is $2 for every $10. Not too bad. Personally, I try to do a little bit more than 20% just because I'm like that, but it's entirely up to you. As far as whether you want to get more than 20% or not. And finally, you might want to see if you can pay with cash, because if you have absolutely no other choice but to pay with your credit card or debit card, that's all right. But if you have the option to pay for cash, that would be very preferable, because sometimes if you pay with card, it might take the waiter a week or so to be able to get it to pocket their tip money. So if you can pay with cash, that would be great. I hope you can all remember that waiters and most bartenders are paid less exactly because it's assumed that they'll make up the difference with their tips. This does not always happen because many people are thoughtless and they simply leave an extremely small amount of money. And so I just encourage all of you to take care of the people who serve you as you go out to eat, because they deserve it. This is how they make their living, and they truly are trying their best. And if you take my advice and go with what I just told you, then it might just make more of a difference than you imagine to waiters who are just trying to make their way through life like you and me. Thank you.